Hello everybody, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and welcome to Zen Anime, where I take a look at one of the numerous different anime in my collection. Now, I've been a fan of anime for quite some time. Since the days of the original Toonami, Maguzi, and Adult Swim, I've watched countless shows spanning numerous different genres. A few of these genres have been covered on this show already, such as Super Robot with Gurren Lagann, and of course the niche subgenre of cooking battle that is Food Wars. However, there is one genre that I tackled early on that I never intended to delve into again. The second anime review that I ever made was on an anime known as Great Teacher Onizuka, which was a slice-of-life school drama with a heavy emphasis on comedy. Now, I love GTO, but I only knew about the series because my friend Isaiah showed it to me during college along with a bunch of other anime. We were roommates my second year of college, and during this time, he showed me the majority of his anime collection. GTO was one of the first, but I fell in love with it because, in addition to excellent comedy, it taught some great life lessons and had engaging drama that kept me watching even during the slower portions of the show. With that being said, I'm not a big fan of anime that are strictly comedy or slice of life. Perhaps it's because the first few anime that I saw were Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Fullmetal Alchemist, but I don't usually watch anime that are strictly comedy or strictly slice of life. There have been several that I have enjoyed, but I don't seek these anime out on my own, and I found several that I just don't care for. It's mainly my personal tastes, but I prefer the anime that I watch to have gripping stories, or at least a plot stringing everything together. The anime that we're discussing today, at first glance, is everything that I should not care for. It's a school drama, slice-of-life story that is less focused on drama and overarching plot, but instead focuses its efforts on making you laugh and teaching you life lessons. With that being said, this is one of my favorite anime of 2015, hands down. This, my friends, is Assassination Classroom. Season 1 of Assassination Classroom revolves around a special class of students who go to Kunigagaoka Junior High School. Kunigagaoka is a prep school for only the elite students, much like Hope's Peak Academy in Danganronpa, but the difference here is the way the school is run. The school is split into 5 classes based on grades. The best of the best are in Class A, while the worst students in the school are placed into Class E, the end class. Once you enter this class, you have no future due to the way this school is run. You see, by picking out a small group of the worst students in the school and treating them like crap, this school puts pressure on the rest of the students to succeed, and test scores begin to rise across the board. Students in Class E are forced to learn in a dilapidated building far removed from the rest of the students. They aren't allowed to be in clubs or extracurricular activities. They have to walk down a mountain once a month for school assemblies, and they're ostracized by the rest of the students in the school. They aren't allowed any privileges and aren't treated like human beings. All of this in order to raise test scores. Once you enter this class, it's almost impossible to leave. It truly is the end class. Now, this alone is a fantastic premise that had my attention from the very beginning, but this isn't what A-Class is all about. This is just the backstory, the setup for the actual premise of the show. The anime really begins with the moon exploding, leaving only a crescent behind, as 75% of the moon was obliterated by the blast. The real question is, what could do such a thing?
So, I'm the one who blew up the moon.
So yeah, this yellow creature with tentacles is the one that destroyed the moon. It has enough power to destroy the planet, and it will do so in 1 year's time. That is, unless Class E can find a way to assassinate him. The government is powerless to stop him, since normal weapons won't harm him, and he can move at Mach 20, allowing him to dodge weapons specifically designed to kill him. For some reason though, this creature has requested to spend this year teaching Class E, although he refuses to give any details on why. All he will say is that he made a promise to someone that he would teach Class E personally. The government allowed this creature to teach the class on the condition that he never harm any of the students. They also tell the students that there is a 10 billion yen reward for anyone who assassinates this creature. To put that in perspective, that is the equivalent of $90 million. That's enough money to ensure that everyone in E-Class is set for life. At first, the students are unsure how to even go about killing this creature, but one of the government employees, known as Karasama, explains that there are certain things that can harm him. First of all, there are green knives made out of a special material that can cut through his body, and there are special pink BBs that can shoot off his tentacles. With that introduction out of the way, the government employees leave the classroom and the assassination attempts begin. As time goes on, the students have trouble even slightly harming the creature and begin to call him Koro-Sensei. This is a play on words, as the Japanese phrase Koro-Sensei means unkillable, and he is their teacher. Thus, he is the unkillable teacher, Koro-Sensei. All of this happens in the first episode of the show, laying the groundwork for the first season. Class E consists of a ragtag group of students who are all here for different reasons. They are good kids at heart, but something happened to land them in the end class. They have been told that they have no future, but here is an opportunity for all of them to create their own future. If they can kill Koro-Sensei, all of them will be set for life, and they will completely conquer the very idea of the end class. They all have a goal in mind, and so as the series goes on, each student will observe Koro-Sensei and try to find their own way to take him down, but since they're all working towards a common goal, it makes it easier to get behind this large cast of characters. From this point onwards, the show is primarily focused on three main things: the assassination attempts of the students, the prejudice that Class E faces from the school and the principal who runs it, and Koro-Sensei's life lessons. For the first few episodes, the show follows a simple pattern. We're introduced to one or more of the students in E-Class who have a plan to take down Koro-Sensei. We get a chance to learn more about them and the friends that they have in the school, giving us an idea of their strengths, weaknesses, and the individual problems they face. They implement their assassination plan, but something goes wrong, allowing Koro-Sensei to stay alive and teach them a life lesson. Afterwards, while the student has renewed desire to take down Koro-Sensei, they grow more attached to him as a teacher. This formula is the same formula used in Great Teacher Onizuka, only instead of Onizuka teaching life lessons to delinquent students, we have a betentacled monster teaching kids who have been unfairly labeled as lost causes. This is essentially a slice-of-life school drama at its core, but then you throw assassination into the equation, and you get something strange and different. The early episodes of A-Class all have this juxtaposition of lighthearted school drama mixed with deep emotional tragedy, and it works really well. Watching these first few episodes always leaves me with a feeling of warmth inside. Everything is so light and fluffy and easy to watch, but it also has weight to it because these students deal with real problems. There's a student named Sugino who loved to play baseball and played on the school baseball team, but was benched because his fastball wasn't good enough. He eventually let his grades drop because he began to spiral into a depression, wondering what the point of keeping up his grades was if he couldn't even play ball. After a while, he was sent to Class E, where they aren't even allowed to be on school sports teams. Koro-Sensei gets him out of his funk by demonstrating why his fastball wasn't working. It's a very touching scene, presenting us with a life lesson, yes, but it does it in a way that feels natural and doesn't come across as forced. I left this episode with a warm, fuzzy feeling inside and only wanted to watch the show more afterwards. In addition to Sugino, there's a young girl named Manami Okuda who is amazing at science and mathematics, but terrible at everything else. She has a problem communicating with others and can understand science and math because there's always a right answer in these subjects. Manami is one of the greatest scientific minds of her generation, but because of the systems put in place at the school, and because she isn't good at other subjects, she was shipped off to E-Class instead. Koro-Sensei shows her the importance of communicating her ideas to the next generation and pushes her forward, nurturing her talent but showing her where she needs to improve. Then there's Karma Akabane, who has one of the more tragic backstories in the series. Karma is a highly intelligent young man who was accepted into the school based on his good grades. However, because of his high intellect, Karma becomes bored rather easily and skips out on school functions that don't interest him. Instead, Karma has taken an interest in activities that are far more delinquent in nature. He frequently gets into fights with other students and causes mischief to drive away the boredom. At first, the school looked the other way because of his high test scores. His teacher even stated that he would back Karma up no matter what trouble he got in because he was a bright kid with a future. That is, until Karma beat up a student who was bullying one of his friends. He ended up sending the bully to the hospital, causing his teacher to turn on him without warning. Karma was sent to Class E for saving someone in need, and that really did a number on his psyche. From that point forward, he viewed the teacher who betrayed him as a corpse, someone who is dead to him completely. When he finally gets back from his suspension, he comments that he hates teachers now and does his best to kill Koro-Sensei. He becomes the first to actually damage him multiple different times, but can't seem to get in a killing blow, so Karma makes an all-or-nothing assassination attempt. He throws himself off a cliff so that Koro-Sensei has to make a choice: save Karma and get hit with anti-sensei BBs in the attempt, or lose his reputation as a good teacher that cares for his students. Koro-Sensei ends up getting around this assassination attempt and saves Karma's life, changing him for the better and giving him drive and purpose once more. These beginning episodes serve to introduce us to the core members of E-Class, along with brief impressions of everyone else. We really get a feel for what E-Class is all about and the people that are in it. That is, except for Nagisa Shiota, who gets the most focus out of the entire group and appears to be the main character, but has a past shrouded in mystery. As the show continues, new characters appear and make their own attempts to kill Koro-Sensei. First, we have Kurasama-sensei, who's a member of the Special Forces, although he's too slow to even hit Koro-Sensei. He ends up taking over PE and trains the students in hand-to-hand combat. Then there's Irina Yelevich, who is a pro-assassin and seductress. She lures men in with her charm and takes them out like a Black Widow. Her assassination attempt almost works, but she ends up underestimating Koro-Sensei and uses real guns instead of the BBs that would have actually killed him. She doesn't take the advice of the students who have been studying Koro-Sensei all this time, and so she fails spectacularly. She ends up staying on as the English teacher of Class E and shows them all the importance of deception and using language to trick others. She also ends up getting nicknamed to Bitch Sensei because in Japan they would pronounce her last name as Yella Bitch because of the way Japanese speakers natively say the letter V. I simply love this gag and I never get tired of it. In addition to this, we also get 2 more transfer students. Ritsu, an AI system developed by the government, and Itana, a young boy who has been given tentacles like Koro-Sensei and is overseen by a mysterious man named Shiro. Koro-Sensei works his magic once again and ends up improving Ritsu's AI so she can work better with her classmates, and also shows Itana that he has a lot to learn before he can take down Koro-Sensei. All of this takes place during the first half of the show, giving us a lot of time to get accustomed to these characters and this world. The first 11 episodes are dedicated to building the story up slowly, fooling you into thinking that there is no ongoing plot. It tricks you into thinking that this is just a comedy show like Azumanga Daioh, with no importance beyond the individual gags and episodes, but each episode lays the groundwork for the second half of the show. Now, from this point forward, I will be discussing spoilers for Assassination Classroom, so I highly encourage you to stop the video here and watch the show before you continue, because I have a lot to discuss in terms of spoilers. For everyone else, you have been warned. The last 11 episodes of Season 1 revolve mostly around the principal of the school, Gakuho Asano. Now, you may wonder how all of these transfer students and assassination attempts happen without them being stopped by Asano. Well, you see, Asano is actually in on the whole thing. He knows about everything going on in Class E and doesn't interfere unless it directly conflicts with the policies put in place in his school. Class E must be seen as inferior for his philosophy to work, so he only steps in when his methods are directly affected by Class E. He shows up briefly in the first half of the show when Nagisa scares away 2 bullies just by looking at them, and reminds Koro-Sensei that this cannot be allowed to happen on his watch. Afterwards, Koro-Sensei tries to get back at Asano by having the students all place high on the midterms, but only Karma ends up getting high scores because Asano ends up rigging the exam. At the last minute, Asano adds high-level test questions to the end of the midterm exam and teaches every class the material personally, except for Class E. This ends up setting later events into motion, but it also raises the idea that the school portion of this show is just as important as the assassination portion. Koro-Sensei asks the students a very important question just before the midterms. What happens if somebody else kills Koro-Sensei? What if the world doesn't explode and they don't get the prize money? They aren't prepared for that possibility, and so Koro-Sensei spurs them onward, telling them to always keep a hidden blade. From this point forward, school and assassination begin to intertwine, and each part bleeds into the next. The second half becomes a chess match between Koro-Sensei and Asano to see whose teaching methods are better and who can kill Koro-Sensei first. Koro-Sensei takes his time to teach each individual student everything they need to know to do well in any subject, tailoring each quiz based on the needs of each individual student. Some students may need help in one subject, but not another, and he works with them to develop that talent. He wants to show Asano that his kids are better because of the time and attention that he gives to everyone and not just most classes. Asano, on the other hand, is a bit different. While he may seem completely evil at first glance, and he kinda is, his methods do work. He works psychologically by singling out some students to inspire the rest. We see this firsthand in a later episode where E-Class is playing a baseball game against the star team in Class A. When E-Class starts to win, Asano uses his psychological speeches in order to help the team succeed. His methods are underhanded, but they get results most of the time. E-Class had to beat Asano at his own game in order to win in the end. Now, I'm not saying Asano is a good person by any stretch of the imagination, but he represents something very real in the Japanese school system. Much like in Great Teacher Onizuka, Asano represents the corrupt system which alienates anyone who isn't performing to their high standards and ends up creating Yankee or delinquent students who have no future. The system is incredibly cruel to students who may be good at some things but just can't make the cut in others. This struggle between Koro-Sensei and Asano is very real and something that people deal with every day in Japan. Assassination Classroom aims to show you that you can have it both ways. If you pay attention to students' individual needs, you can have high exam scores across the board and still allow everybody an opportunity to succeed and do well in the future. I'm convinced that the classroom portion of Assassination Classroom was heavily influenced by Great Teacher Onizuka because the message behind both series is essentially the same. The difference here, though, is that Koro-Sensei is highly intelligent, and while he is focused on teaching life lessons like Onizuka was, he also wants to teach them everything he knows. He wants to give them a thorough education, including normal subjects such as math, science, and history, but he also wants to impart all of his experience as well. Koro-Sensei is kept as a mystery for Season 1, with minor hints here and there about his past, but it's very clear throughout this season that he wants these students to look up to him as a mentor. He wants his students to see him as a figure that they can trust, and his philosophies and teaching style puts him in direct opposition to Asano, who is also left as a mystery for this season. The struggle between Koro-Sensei and Asano builds up to final exams as 7 students in Class E place first in the grade on 7 different exams. This starts to show the kinks in Asano's plan, but it also allows E-Class to go on the class trip to Okinawa, leading to a massive assassination arc. You see, Koro-Sensei made a wager with the class. For each student who placed first in an exam, he would let that student destroy 1 tentacle, reducing his speed by 10% per tentacle. With this in mind, they set up an amazing assassination attempt in Okinawa, which almost works. The students all use their knowledge of Koro-Sensei to put on one hell of a show. Afterwards, we get another fantastic arc in Okinawa where E-Class has to face off against professional assassins. While this is the spoiler section, I will not be delving into the details of the Okinawa arc until I cover Season 2. You really have to see this arc for yourself because the assassins themselves are really interesting and engaging villains, and the climax is just superb. The second half of Season 1 builds up to something truly great and ends on one hell of a cliffhanger for Season 2. Overall, the story of Assassination Classroom Season 1 is simply fantastic. It takes its time getting going, but it also manages to keep your attention with the individual episodes and the struggles that each character goes through. Much like Koro-Sensei, the show draws attention to individual students, and even in the first half, I found myself glued to the screen for most episodes. It's lighthearted and easy to consume, but it always manages to keep your attention. Speaking of characters, Assassination Classroom has one of the largest casts I've seen in recent memory. There are 28 individual students in E-Class alone. If you throw in the teachers and other students that tend to show up throughout the first season, you might start to feel a bit overwhelmed. However, since the students are gradually introduced to us over time and all have excellent stories to tell, I ended up loving this cast. We spent the majority of the show seeing things from Nagisa's perspective, and he is quite interesting. He spends his time jotting down a list of Koro-Sensei's weak points and ends up helping the most in the assassination attempts. More than anything though, Nagisa cares for the rest of the students in the class. If they aren't being treated fairly, he does his best to stick up for them and find a way to help them out along with Koro-Sensei. Nagisa is also one of the best assassins in the group. Not with battle skill, mind you, but with his ability to feign a smile and stab his opponent in the back. He gets some of the best assassin moments of the show because of it. I really do like Nagisa, but I wish we knew more about him as a character. His past is left hidden until Season 2, which leads to a great reveal, but leaves us hanging for Season 1. It's not necessarily a bad thing to leave the main character's past a mystery for the first season, but it does leave me wanting more. Karma also gets a large amount of development this season. In addition to his backstory, he gets a chance to develop during the final exams. While the other students studied like crazy, Karma took it easy. He didn't think anything could challenge him, but then he ended up doing worse than many of the other students in E-Class. Koro-Sensei rubs it in his face to show him that even those with intelligence have to try. This failure spurs Karma forward and forces him to actually try and put his intellect to good use. This is a huge moment for him and is called back on later in the season, but it really hits home for me because when I was a kid, I was a lot like Karma. I was highly intelligent and grew bored in school, coasting through classes and lashing out at the bullies in my school. I relate super hard to Karma because he represents myself during high school. It wasn't until college where I learned to actually apply myself and why it was necessary, because I couldn't just coast on intelligence alone, and it actually felt good when I succeeded again. Hell, I also got in trouble for defending myself from being jumped in the locker room in my junior high, which led to trouble in high school, but that's a story for another time. The rest of the characters also have some interesting stories to tell. While there's simply too many to list here, some of my favorites include Okajima and his porn sword, where he proves to us that pornography can indeed save the world, and no, I am not giving context to that. The bubbly Hinano and her bug collection, Terasaka and his entire story arc, and Kaede with her hatred of big boobs. I have to say, one of the biggest strengths of this anime is how it balances its characters. There's always a few of the class in the spotlight, and this changes every single arc. However, even when they aren't in the spotlight, the entire class is behaving with distinct character. Granted, I do wish I knew more about some of the students who don't do as much this season, but we do get quite a bit here, and it's more than other anime. There were a few bits cut from the original manga, including some character development and Hinano's attack dolphins. I am dead serious about that last one, but overall the cut material isn't too noticeable. In terms of presentation, A-Class is quite distinct. The visual style feels a lot like a manga, with heavy ink outlines for the characters that help them stand out from the backgrounds. Also, each character has a color scheme and a design that makes them easy to distinguish from one another. You will never find yourself mixing up students because, for the most part, they all have something you can identify as distinctly theirs. Ritsu is a computer program and has shockingly purple hair. Nagisa has blue, Kaede has green, Karma has red, and so on. They all have something that draws your attention, and so I have to give praise to the design team here. This animation was done by Studio Lurch, the same studio who animated Persona 4 the animation and Danganronpa the animation, and they did a great job here. Everything pops even when it's still, but during the action it kicks into high gear. Just animating Koro-Sensei alone and his Mach 20 movements must be hard, but everything is done incredibly smooth. It gets especially good during midterms and finals, where we see the entire class take on monster representation of test questions. It's really quite cool to see how they stylize certain ordinary things to make them even more badass. Another thing to praise is the lighting and the use of shadow. Since they are assassins, the focus should be on the use of shadow when needed, but they also use it to obscure things for later reveals and big payoffs. During the Okinawa arc, they obscure the face of the true villain, aside from some facial scars, using shadows for a great reveal later on. They also do something similar with the principal, where they reveal the inner dark nature of the character by making his face transparent and using centipedes underneath to create perfect symbolism. This animation is just great, and I have nothing bad to say in this case. In terms of music, Assassination Classroom is eclectic, but that fits with the nature of the show. A large portion of the music is laid back and relaxing to fit with the slice of life setting, but mixed in with this, you have battle themes, haunting ghostly pieces, classic piano melodies, electronically charged themes, and everything in between. There's a lot of variety, but everything fits perfectly with the mood and tone of each scene. Speaking of music, let's discuss the opening and ending themes. The first opening, Savage Youth Theory, is certainly different. It's a high-energy, upbeat piece that somehow works despite some of the problems that I have. When I first heard this theme, I wasn't a big fan, but over time it worked its way into my brain. It's certainly not my favorite theme ever, but I really like it and how it relates to the show. The happy tone of the song masks the dark themes present in the series, and the opening visuals do a great job illustrating that when it quickly flashes to darker scenes and cuts back to the students just happily dancing along. I also really like that this is sung by the Japanese voice actors for Nagisa, Karma, Kayano, Isugai, and Mayahara. That adds a familiar sound to the song. Overall, it's not my favorite opening ever, but there are certain things that I do love about it, and it grew on me a lot over time. The second opening theme, Self-Reliance Revolution, is a lot better in my opinion. This opening covers the second half of the season after we've been introduced to the entire cast, and after a major event in the series. You see, after the introduction of Itana and his fight with Koro-Sensei, the entire class starts feeling powerless. They realize that Itana was the closest that anyone got to killing Koro-Sensei, and they don't want that. So they all go to Karasuma-sensei after class and ask for additional combat training. They want to spend as much time as needed to take out their target. This opening reflects that in a big way. Instead of showing groups of students together to represent their friend circles like in the first opening, we see all of the students grouped together in a line to show they are all one class. Honestly, while it doesn't make any of my top lists, I really like this opening and what it represents for the show. It's a natural progression based on the show itself, and I feel more series should do this. As for the ending theme, Hello Shooting Star, it is just fantastic. This is my favorite theme of the series thus far. It's so laid back and relaxed, which is welcome after the happy endings of each episode. This is a song I could listen to over and over again when I feel exhausted after a long day of work. It just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, like a cup of hot cocoa. And now it is time to address two things that I haven't brought up until this point. First, in addition to all the drama and emotion, this is also a comedy series. I saved this for the end because comedy is highly subjective. It is hard to quantify what is and isn't funny because what I laugh at, others may find stupid or simply not funny. Because of this, I'm just going to leave it up to you to decide if you find this show funny. Personally, I laughed a whole bunch while watching the show, but I totally understand if you didn't, simply because everyone has different tastes. Secondly, while I do love most of the series, there is one bit that I do hate. Kunudan. I hate this guy. Kunudan is the mascot of the school. He shows up briefly during some episodes, and I find him so damn annoying. Part of it is the voice in both dub and sub being extremely grating, but he is just a redundant character. He exists solely to point out the hypocrisy of the school. Since he is the school mascot, his job is to introduce students to how things work at the school. The problem is, this is stuff that we could gather for ourselves. Every single time he appears, I just feel like he's stating the obvious, and it's not very subtle. It's insulting that they think we don't understand the way the school works. He should have definitely been cut from the show entirely because he is just a waste of time. Granted, he's only around a short amount of time, but he's the one thing that I do hate about the show. In terms of voice acting, both the dub and sub are simply amazing. This is one show I can watch in either track and enjoy myself regardless. I think part of this is a testament to Funimation. This was run as a simuldub back in 2015, and normally because of the rushed development cycle of these dubs, I have issues here and there, but here everything is just so well handled. This was directed by Joel McDonald and Afia Yu, two veterans in the industry, and written by J. Michael Tatum. Now, there are times when I have issues with his scripts due to inappropriate terminology to the time period and the tone of the show. I haven't covered any of them yet, but we'll get to one very soon. In any case, this is one of his better scripts, with everything sounding perfectly natural to the setting. Overall, I think the directors and the writer did a great job translating this to English. It helps that Afia Yu also speaks Japanese and was consulted heavily on the details of the manga when they were working on early episodes of the show. I do think the bitch sensei gag works better in Japanese personally, but overall, they made this incredibly accessible to English audiences, especially considering a large portion of the jokes are Japanese puns, and they're usually pretty hard to translate. As for the voice acting itself, 99% of this is perfectly cast and acted. The only two problems I personally have are with Kunudan, which I discussed earlier, and has problems in the sub as well, and Monica Rial as Kaede. I know she's using her natural voice for the character, but I feel it's not very suited for Kaede in particular. She's supposed to be cute sounding, but I feel she's a bit too high-pitched for the role. I would have personally gotten Brina Palencia or someone with a softer voice. Don't get me wrong, I do love Monica Rial. She's a sweet and talented actress, but I feel she's a bit miscast in this case. Other than that, this is an amazing group of voice actors. Austin Tyndall as Karma is excellent. Leah Clark as Kanzaki is cute as all hell. Clifford Chapin as Sugino is very heartfelt. Jerry Jewell brings out his inner rail tracer as Isogai. Chris Ryan is perfect as Kurasama with his smooth as hell voice. Chris Sabat as Grip is a joy to listen to, and Marcus Stimmick is just the best as Terasaka. Seriously, Marcus Stimmick is one of my favorites in this group. He brings so much passion and energy to the role, and dear God, he needs to be in more leading roles. Justin Cook as Takaoka is especially awesome considering he doesn't do much voice work these days. He tends to produce most of the Funimation anime, but hearing him again after all these years is just plain cool. I mean, he voiced Yusuke back in Yu Yu Hakusho, the show that introduced me to anime in the first place. The rest of the cast all put in peak performances, but the true standouts in both dub and sub are Sunny Strait and Jun Fukuyama as Koro-Sensei. Both of these voice actors are so damn perfect, it's hard to tell which I love more. Jun really brings out the alien nature and weirdness of Koro-Sensei with his voice. Sunny Strait, on the other hand, really brings out the humanity of Koro-Sensei, and also his comedic timing is simply superb. In the end, both the dub and sub are well worth your time. I don't personally have a preference for this show. I've seen them both twice now, and they both just work so damn well, so you can personally just take your pick. In terms of extras, A-Class has quite a bit for you to check out. In addition to textless opening and ending themes, you get director's commentary with the cast of the show, and even a video interview with Sunny Strait and 3 other members of the cast. The best part is Austin Tyndall as Farmer Karma. There's even a countdown of the top 10 moments of the show as presented by the cast. More anime releases need extras like this because I always watch them to get further insight on the show and the creative process. In addition to all of this, Season 1 also contains Episode 0, an OVA special where Kurasama meets Koro-Sensei for the first time. This was animated by Brains Base, the same studio who animated Baccano, and oh boy, is this animation glorious as a result. It doesn't explain anything more about Koro-Sensei and where he came from, but it really is a good introduction to the character and an entertaining watch. If you've got some time to kill after watching the show, I'd say give it a look because it does expand upon the world a little bit more. Overall, Assassination Classroom is highly worth your time. While some people might not like the slice of life beginning, it has something for everyone with the assassination attempts, deep emotional moments, and inspirational messages woven throughout the show. This was one of my favorite anime of 2015, and there are very few problems that I have with the show. I found myself laughing and crying all the way through this season, and I can't wait to discuss Season 2 in the future because it is even more powerful. However, when it came time to make a stamp for the show, I was a bit conflicted, to be honest. On the one hand, the show has so very few flaws that hold it back from greatness, so I can't just give it a single Kana stamp, but on the other hand, I do feel that the slow beginning and the slice of life nature might turn some people off, so I can't call it a perfect anime and give it a double stamp of approval. So with that being said, I decided to create a new stamp entirely that perfectly encapsulates the strengths of this anime. Assassination Classroom gets a stamp of Kana Approval Plus. What this means is that it has no big faults that hold it back from recommendation, but I don't think it will be everyone's cup of tea. Because of this new stamp, I do have to address one thing in particular. I stand by every single stamp that I have given thus far, but I would like to retroactively update one stamp in particular. In my review of Unearthly Child, I said that the caveman portion of that episode gets a stamp of just okay, and the pilot gets a stamp of approval. Now, the caveman portion of that serial still gets a stamp of just okay, because it is just okay, but the pilot gets a stamp of Kana Plus because while I don't think everyone will be able to enjoy it, given how old it is at this point, there are very few flaws that hold it back from greatness. So yeah, that's 2 Kana Plus stamps given out to 2 worthy shows. Now, before I wrap up this video, I do want to mention the reason why I started watching this anime in the first place. A while back, my friend Isaac, the media hunter, made an in-depth analysis of the Okinawa arc of the show. I was so intrigued by the premise and his review, I started marathoning the first season. In honor of that, I brought Isaac on board to discuss his thoughts on Season 1 overall. Isaac, looking back, what do you think of Season 1?
Well, even if it's been a long time since I got to properly see the series in its entirety, there were plenty of moments and characters in both the anime and manga that really stood out as far as memorability. Like, as much as I love how nearly everyone in Class E gets time to develop their personalities and personal arcs, it's characters like Nagisa and Karma who really have some of the best development, as both friends and assassins. Nagisa, being timid yet having this hidden bloodlust that makes him a potentially powerful assassin, contrasts with how Karma is upfront and calculative with what he does, while having just a bit more power than Nagisa without the stealth or speed. It'll especially be more apparent when you get to Season 2, and I won't say much else on that. Hell, if anything, a lot of the things Season 1 did, involving characters and story development, got improved during Season 2. But even in just this first season, we got a lot out of these characters and the stuff they get into. While the anime doesn't cover everything, like there was one event where Nagisa and friends pull a prank on a couple of students who mistreated one of their friends by sniping their drinks with laxatives, and then one instance where Kataoka tries teaching an upperclassman to swim better with the aid of Koro-Sensei, which I get might need cutting for time. Though with next season, that might be an issue with one other story event. If nothing else, I do love the style and approach the series takes with its animation, backed by wonderful casting and music. And one last thing before I go is that of the major antagonists, Asano will always be a great example of an intimidating adult, who can not only talk his way into scaring people crapless, but is a master of manipulating the system to his own benefits. Not even getting to Season 2 stuff either, but when you consider that Sho Hayami voices him, He makes for what I think of him as this series' Aizen. He's truly terrifying, and I love that, just as someone for everyone to take on. Even Koro-Sensei, since not even he was prepared for the kind of intellect the man has. As a whole, this series has plenty of great laughs, but also good drama and action. It's certainly an interesting take on the sort of slice-of-life school drama that often happens with anime and manga, and I guarantee that when you get to Season 2, you will be crying your eyes out by the end.
Assassination Classroom Season 1 is currently licensed by Funimation and can be found on rightstuff.com. I really love Right Stuff. Any anime that isn't print is available for purchase on their site, and there's always killer deals going on, such as 50% off major titles and new series, so you could probably get this anime half off. In any case, I am Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and I will see you all next time. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that you too can join the Bun Squad, my legion of cute fluffy bunnies who watch my videos, and make sure you hit the bell to be notified of every new video. Have a good one, every bunny!
Can we take tomorrow off? All of this training is making me tired.
What have you two been doing?
Oh, hi, Phil. Well, you see, Chibi's been helping me train a ton so that I can learn how to henshin and protect Mommy.
Oh yeah, Chiaki did mention something about that when I met the two of you. Well, either way, why do you need that? Zen's not in any trouble, is she?
No, of course she isn't. Don't be ridiculous. Although I suspect she would be with you lurking around the TARDIS all the time.
Excuse you? What, are you expecting me to lure her in and drug her when she's not looking?
What?
Sorry, Zen just reviewed Assassination Classroom, so it's on the mind. My point is, why are you so defensive about me simply being here when it's my job to edit Zen's reviews? She's kind of my paycheck, and on top of that, my friend. Why would I do anything to hurt her?
Yeah, what gives, Chibi? Phil is really fun to be around. He even lets me lick his hair, which I'm told isn't normal. But he still lets me do it. I like having him around.
Well, Kana, let me remind you that one of Mother's other associates, Linkara, has had a history of mysterious men betraying him out of nowhere. I have no reason to suspect that Philip is not going to do the same thing.
Chiaki, that is such a flimsy suspicion. If anything, I should be suspicious of you.
Suspicious? Of what exactly?
Well, for starters, may I ask how you two turned into talking cats? Zen only briefly mentioned it to me a few months back, so the how of your transformation was never really explained to me.
Well, you see, we were on the sushi planet and...
Kana, you don't have to say a word to him. Maybe he should just keep his nose out of other people's business. Now, come along. There's still much more training to be done.
But we just finished for the day.
I said come along.
Sorry, Phil. I'll tell you all about how we can talk later. For now, I gotta talk some sense into Chibi. She's practically putting me through labor. Labor, I tell you! Chibi, wait! Why don't we go get some sushi instead?
What in Haruhi's name has got that grey furball so riled up? Training, huh? Yeah, that may not be such a bad idea.
口にする愛にくばかり続けるとするはないよ